On Sunday, we'll see the Philadelphia Eagles take on the Kansas City Chiefs in Super Bowl 59, a rematch of the big game from 2 years ago when the teams faced off in Super Bowl 57. That game, which was played in Glendale, Arizona, ended with a Chiefs victory, but surprisingly, most of the commentary following the matchup was focused on the playing field itself. Players on both teams were slipping and sliding all night long. Jordan Mailata said that it was like playing on a water park. Hassan Reddick called it the worst field he had ever played on. Nearly a dozen players had to switch cleats mid-game to get better traction, but it didn't solve the issue. Eagles kicker Jake Elliott nearly twisted his ankle during a kickoff in the third quarter, and Jalen Hurts appeared to slip while attempting a Hail Mary on the last play of the game. Needless to say, this wasn't how the league had intended things to be. That year's Super Bowl attracted more than 110 million viewers in America alone, and the NFL had spent months and millions preparing the field. After the big game, another game immediately started. The blame game. George Toma, the only man to be known as the Sod Father, went on a media tour to say that the field had been overwatered too late in the process, which didn't allow it to dry properly. Toma, who had worked the field for every Super Bowl in league history, also claimed the tarp placed on the field during halftime show rehearsals and media day caused the recently installed grass to rot, and that the field should have been sanded several more times throughout the week. The Sod Father felt comfortable offering these critiques for two reasons. One, he was 94 years old, which, if you haven't spent time around someone over the age of 80, means he has no filter whatsoever.
Well, actually, I'm 94 years old, and I've been in this game for 81 years, so I've seen a lot of grass. But the NFL on playing fields went downhill 17 years ago when Roger Goodell took over.
Whoa.
Me and Roger Goodell were excellent friends. He took care of me. What a great guy he was. But in those last 17 years, maybe 12 times, we had bad playing fields. Under Troy Vincent, in his 10 years, 6 times we had bad playing fields. And nothing was done about them. And the problem started at Super Bowl 56 on the practice field for the Bengals, where we told the league the field's not ready, it's not that.
And two, he was set to retire after that year's Super Bowl, aka he had 0 cares left to give. No matter what, the result was clear. The NFL needed to implement a new process with better technology to ensure that this never happened again. After the god of sod retired, the NFL turned to Nick Pappas to run things. The UMass grad oversees a team of employees responsible for all of the NFL's neutral site games. This includes international matchups in places like London, Germany, and Brazil, as well as the Pro Bowl, and most importantly, the Super Bowl. With so much newfound fan interest in the process behind preparing a Super Bowl field, I spoke with Nick Pappas this week to learn more about how it all works. We talked about the logistics, the pros and cons of different surfaces, and how the league is leveraging new technology to create universal guidelines for the quality of every NFL field. For starters, this year's Super Bowl is more straightforward than others. Why? Well, because rather than shipping in new grass from Arizona or California to build an entirely new field from scratch, like the NFL has done for the last 2 Super Bowls, the Chiefs and Eagles will play on the same synthetic turf surface that the New Orleans Saints have used all season long. The NFL sends Nick down to future Super Bowl locations more than a year in advance for planning purposes, but the real work starts about a month away from the big game. This is when Nick and his crew of 25 arrive in town to get started on the work. Nick and his crew lived in New Orleans for a month this year and were tasked with preparing and maintaining every field the NFL uses during Super Bowl week. That obviously includes the stadium itself, but it also includes fields at both the AFC and NFC training facilities, used by each team, as well as fan experience fields used for various NFL marketing activations. First up, it's the painting of the field. Nick and his team start this process 2 weeks before the Super Bowl kicks off. They use non-hazardous acrylic latex paint designed for temporary application and removal on synthetic surfaces. Grass fields require more paint because it often gets removed when the grass is trimmed throughout the 4-week period. But even on synthetic turf, the NFL will still go through about 350 gallons of locally sourced paint on the field. The NFL's creative department is in charge of designing the Super Bowl field, and Nick and his team begin to implement that design about 2 weeks before the game. It starts with the required football markings, followed by the NFL shield, trophies, and logo. Once the teams facing off the Super Bowl have been decided, Nick and his crew, which includes 2 people hitting their 30th Super Bowl this year, use stencils to execute the prescribed look to perfection. As for the turf itself, it was made by Turf Nation, a company based in Dalton, Georgia. The synthetic turf surface is a 100% monofilament fiber system with sand and crumb rubber infill, specifically designed to play firm and fast, maximizing player performance and safety. Once the turf is put down and the paint is dried, Nick Pappas will distribute documents and parameters to describe precisely what is permitted on the surface during Super Bowl week. Now, these documents differ depending on what type of surface is being used, but they cover everything anyone needs to know, getting as detailed as to how many people are approved to be on the field during halftime show rehearsals to the approved weight of stages, courts, and AV equipment. Unlike natural grass, synthetic turf doesn't necessarily die or wear out during this process, but the fibers can still become overly matted. To combat this, Nick and his crew use a combination of tarps, concert decking, and 3D cushion mats to protect the field. To protect the field during halftime, but also retain its look, Nick's crew uses custom-made tarps to cover the field, made to the same size, specifications, and design seen during the game. Throughout the week leading up to the Super Bowl, the field is extensively tested to ensure it meets the highest quality standard.
We use multiple different types of testing devices. Those give us different types of performance metrics as well, and that allows us to, again, make decisions on what we need to do from a groundskeeping perspective that'll impact us to put us in the best possible position per game day.
The NFL has a strict set of criteria for approval that all fields must meet prior to being used for a game or practice, and they've gotten really creative with the use of technology and data over the last few Super Bowls. This tech includes sensors implanted into the field to monitor the field's temperature and moisture levels throughout the week. The process also includes much more advanced technology though, like a relatively new system with an incredible name: the Beast. Beast stands for Biomechanical Elite Athlete Shoe Turf Tester, and is a physical machine that tests the interaction between a player's cleats and the football field. This machine simulates how a player might move across a football field to help the grounds crew determine if any changes need to be made. Data from the Beast is uploaded to a cloud system for analysis and then turned into a visual display. The data breaks down the football field into 60 different sections on a visual control panel, allowing field experts to examine the surface section by section. As of right now, the Beast is only used for research purposes, but Pappas believes it will eventually be adapted for mandatory use since the NFL has been using it to collect data before and after every game at stadiums across the league, as well as the last few Super Bowls. The most interesting part about the Super Bowl field preparation process, though, is that it's getting better and better every year, and the reason why is international games. The Super Bowl is obviously in a class of its own, but with the NFL increasing its international presence each year, international games essentially act as a testing ground for Pappas and his team. Not only are these games being played on a global stage, but they often present many of the same challenges as the Super Bowl, including condensed timelines, elongated pregame introductions, pregame concerts, halftime shows, and more. Over the last several years, fans have become more interested in this process, turning what is essentially watching grass grow into a topic for online articles and interviews. The men and women who prepared this year's Super Bowl field in New Orleans have spent a lot of time and effort ensuring that fans and players have the best possible experience. But oddly enough, Nick Pappas, his crew, and the entire league office are hoping nobody notices. The players are the storyline, and the game is the product. If nobody notices or talks about the field, then it's considered a job well done.